those who don't know you, that's Broderick, one of my mentors, and he's just pretty much changed everything I know about bodybuilding and enhanced side of it. And today I just wanted to clear out a few bits and find out his personal opinion, because there are so many different contradicting things. And so if I'm an amateur, pretty much one of the best amateurs in UK.
Absolutely.
An amateur bodybuilder that could become a pro. So what's your opinion in this side? So if someone comes to gym, wants to train, wants to become a professional bodybuilder, how much do genetics play in this? And by genetics, I mean, what do you look for? Is there anything you can kind of highlight that there needs to be specific body type in terms of limb length, or maybe tolerance to training really low, like high intensity for a long time? What kind of things that come into your mind when I ask you, what are genetical things necessary for professional bodybuilder?
Cool. Let's start at the beginning. First of all, trying to like compare you to just somebody who bumbles into the gym and thinks, hey, this whole bodybuilding thing looks fun. That's not really fair, because you've already gone through the 15-year vetting process of, oh, you are actually a fucking bodybuilder. You have the chops, and we'll talk about what the chops are. But, so that's not really something like we could put you into the category of somebody walks off the street, wants to be a bodybuilder. To that person, what I would say is, genetics be damned, do what you want to do, train and enjoy it. The world of bodybuilding will weed out the losers. So that's how I would answer that person. But to be specific to what you've asked, like what sort of genetic markers do you look for? Unfortunately, it's a much bigger world than it used to be. In the 1930s, 1940s, the concept of genetics was 6 foot tall, wide shoulders, full calves, maybe a nice long bicep, not a lot of space between a bicep and a forearm, maybe even good looks. That's what genetics were. That was the Steve Reeves. However, as things progressed, things like joint integrity, how quickly or slowly you wear out orthopedically, your ability to digest and tolerate food is a huge factor, largely genetically predetermined. Drug response, not every bodybuilder runs right to using drugs, but if you do, how well you respond to drugs is a genetic factor. How badly drugs wear on you physically, side effects, is a genetic factor. And then two other genetic factors, which are somewhere between genetic and social, is intelligence. Are you fucking smart enough to figure out you need to hire somebody to tell you all the things that you need? And then the other side of that is, and this is where like someone like yourself really excels, and I don't mean this as an insult, you're fucking mean enough. If I say, Eurus, you're not allowed to eat for the next 2 months, you just put your head down and be like, damn. And then you'd go about your business for 2 months and not eat a fucking scrap of food because you're mean enough. That's a genetic/social factor. So genetics is a really wide spectrum, and it's not the sort of thing where you just like joining the military, you sit down and take a test and they go, oh yeah, you would make an excellent bodybuilder, or, oh, you would make an excellent, rugby player. It's more of a situation where you like and want to follow the ideal of bodybuilding, and your deficiencies will become apparent. Sometimes those deficiencies can be overcome by some other thing. You're not that smart, but you're really fucking mean. Or you're really fucking smart, but you don't have the best, widest shoulders. Or a lot of times you can figure out a way, on an kind of an average. But to really just say what's the thing you got to have, just got to have chops. You got to want to, and you got to be fucking smart enough and mean enough to make it happen.
That kind of in my brain, the Ronnie Coleman flashes up.
100%, 100%. Just, the nicest guy in the world, but he's just not smart enough to take the time to think about it. Chad said, pick up the weights, eat the food. I'll pick up the weights, eat the food. Lo and behold, magic happens.
What do you think is most common, let's say, to last 4 Mr. Olympia title holders? Let's scratch, well, I would like to take out Brandon Curry and Sean Roden out of the equation. Let's talk Phil Heath, someone who's established multiple times themselves as Mr. Olympia, like champion. What would be something in common for all of them?
Durability. Durability, that ability to not just wear out as a human being. Their joints are tough. Their mind is tough. Their insides are tough. They can just keep eating, keep training. Dexter Jackson's a perfect example. Dude's just indestructible. He's 50 years old and he's just still plowing along. That's genetic, and it's also just meanness. It's just you just want to more than the other people want to. That matters. That fucking matters.
Makes it sad that I bloody didn't make the Zatano Classic now because he's not going to compete. Yeah. So anyways, that's I think that's great. So from what I see, it's primarily mindset. You just need to be daft enough to pursue that. It's nothing nice from my perspective. To be bodybuilder, you need to be a bit like negligent to extend to understand when to pull back.
Yes, but in the same breath, you can't be that 1980s tough guy where I'm just going to do it and I'm just going to train no matter what. And then, in 5 years, you're a fucking cripple. So it's definitely meanness, but it's kind of more a targeted meanness, a special variety. You can't just be that idiot tough guy cowboy, bang, bang. You got to have a little, you got to have a little smarts. But yes, you're definitely right. Bodybuilding is not as nice as other endeavors. You do have to be mean. Yeah.
This comes like we're starting to push myself again further, and so my direct training partner, he was like, "What's wrong with you?" Like last 3 or 4 weeks, and like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "There's nothing wrong with me. I'm just focused." This is the difference between me training and me training for purpose. It's like, now I get it. And like within 2 weeks, oh, you look so much different. It's like, yeah, now we're training seriously.
Yeah.
So I think being able to switch personalities probably from that bodybuilder in a gym to person in a life is a big contributor.
Probably.
Yeah. So another thing, like you mentioned, training experience, how big of a role does that play? Can you just go in a gym without any experience and start boosting balls, or does it take 5, 6, 7, 10 years for you to realize, oh, I could be a bodybuilder?
There's where things get a little funny. Bodybuilding takes this very much roller coaster type ride. Any idiot can walk into any gym and just pick up weights almost randomly, poorly, wackily, and make excellent progress. The catch is when that early progress, when those beginner gains, whatever language you want to use, when those run out, that's when the brains need to come on. And you need to figure out how to overcome your weaknesses. Everybody, no matter how gifted, Ronnie Coleman, everyone, Lee Haney, they had weaknesses. And it took either a long time or a very sharp eye to recognize this is how we're going to work around that. We're not going to squat heavy. We're going to do this. Or you need to stretch more, squeeze more. There's a way. There's a way. Maybe it's pre-exhaust. Maybe it's really high volume, but there's a way. And the learning curve from that, I'm done making the gravy gains, to now I need to make the progress. For everyone, that's different. But in a general sense, my experience is it never happens in less than 5 years. If you haven't been just beating a fucking street For 5 years, I don't want to hear about you being a pro. Just shut the fuck up, go back to the gym. 5 years later, I'll start to talk to you. I'm not going to start like blowing smoke up your ass and, oh, you're the next Phil Heath. No. I'll let you at least voice your opinion. But at 4.5 years, shut the fuck up, back in the gym. Whether you get there in 5 years or 15 years, and no disrespect to you, is simply a matter of either how smart you are or how much help you have. Somebody that has seen that problem and can save you those 5 years by going, oh yeah, my calves didn't grow either. I had to do this. That's the big, to be fair, I think that's the thing bodybuilding has lost. Once upon a time, bodybuilding was very mentor based. You always had a training partner that was better than you, smarter than you, older than you. And that person always helped you. And now it's just a bunch of yahoos on Instagram, and it's not as healthy as it was, in my opinion.
So from what I hear, is basically environment is more important than your training experience. So where you are, with whom you are hanging about.
100%. The quality, right, the quality of people you interact with is absolutely the difference. Everybody, for instance, it seems like such a romanticized example, but Venice, California in the 1970s, it wasn't, California was nice and the economy was good and the sunlight and the beaches. But the reason people went to Venice, California is because that's where bodybuilding was. If you wanted to see how Arnold and Franco and Zane and what have you, you had to fucking go there. And then you were part of it, then you were swimming in the same pool, bathing in the same water. And next thing you know, you picked up their good habits and you got better. That is the difference. When you can look across the gym and you go, oh shit, why is he doing that? And then that looks like that's working. And then now you're over there playing in the play box. That's how that's supposed to work.
Yeah, that's what I can really relate to. When I started powerlifting at the beginning, I was surrounded by guys who were like top 3 in world strongest man, Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting. Yeah. And bloody bastards never told me. So right. I didn't even know. So I always thought I'm one of the weakest guys in a gym, but I was one of the strongest in my country. Only because I was training with guys who were strongest on the planet.
But you were the weakest in the gym. That's the funny part, is you were the absolute worst of the absolute best, which is fucking amazing.
Yeah. But same when I came to UK 10 years ago now, for a very long time, there was just nowhere to train for me. So it felt like I'm just mincing myself on the same place. Whereas now I'm in a really good environment and I can feel myself progressing and I don't even do half the stupid stuff. I think I should making really good progress. So, but yeah, and following up on that, how much of a training style comes into play for someone to become a professional bodybuilder? So how they need to train and does it really make so much of a difference, because you have these contradicting things about as long as you train to failure, you're going to grow and this and that. And
here's the thing with training style, and this is something that really is kind of a growth in my mindset. This is something that I've changed my mind, or maybe not fair to say changed my mind, but I've refined my thoughts on this, and I've gotten maybe a little bit more liberal on this topic than I was just 4 or 5 years ago. I do believe some training methods are better than others. I do think some training behaviors are superior to others. But I think the number one factor in terms of training style is not whether it's 70% perfect or 90% perfect, but that the method you select, the style of training that you latch onto, is one in which you personally, going back to those beginning of the conversation, those genetic factors, including personality, that you can latch onto. If I gave you the perfect workout, but you fucking hated it, you wouldn't do it that well, and it wouldn't work that well. The other side of the coin is it might give you a pretty good program, but you love it. I mean, you froth for it. You love it. Your buy-in is so much better, and the results are going to be so much better. So I think that, yes, your training has to have certain components. You have to have a certain amount of volume. You have to train at this or higher intensity. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the real big thing is the training has to match you and give you a high buy-in, a high personal gratification to make you want to do it more. That, I think, is that is the thing that I think I fucked up as an athlete. I trained a little too textbook and a little too lacking in just, I fucking want to do this. I just want to fucking do this. I want to do it because I want to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like for myself, I think my chest workout hasn't changed in 15 years. I always do very high intensity, very low reps, maybe 2 or 3 exercises tops. And my chest is responding really well. Whereas legs, I need to train at least twice a week.
Yep.
And then my back, I need to train really high volume to even feel it.
Yep.
So, and that took, like, training back took me 10 years to understand how to bloody feel it. No, everything else is easy. You're just flexing for front of a mirror. Oh, it's great. Whereas back training was like pain in the ass. But now all my clients are probably having some of the best backs I can provide, just because I was struggling with it so much.
400 kilo deadlifters, I would say so.
Yeah, it's nice to see that guys at like 22 years of age within 14 months go from not being able to bodyweight squat to 300 kilo deadlift. It's nice to see. So yeah, I'll have some monsters, which is shame that one of my first strength projects had to pull out from strength training, and he was doing overhead press, was 150 kilo barbell standing. It was like 7 foot tall, 140 kilos body weight, 22 years of age. First deadlift session, he deadlifted 260. 4 days later, he deadlifted 300, and he had never touched gear. Never. He did ask me, oh, what do you think if I should take anything? I'm like, why? My friends are doing it. Is any of them bigger, stronger, fitter than you? No. That's your answer. Let's go with that. And he could run. I remember one session I made him sprint for 12 minutes with 100 kilo sledge. And he did it. It just didn't stop. It was just insane. Yeah, I miss him. He just does bodyweight workouts now. He runs his dad's business, but that's another story. Yeah, but it's great to kind of learn from my failures and put it into practice and see that
absolutely,
if someone was giving me as much as I can give to someone else now, like scary how much I could have been progressing, but it's not late now. I'm still young.
Absolutely.
So we move in. That's really good insight, like on training styles that you see so many things. Like now in UK, people keep asking you about JP. You still don't know who JP is. But he does like 1-2 sets of all out and whatnot. So, a lot of people can't just keep up with that. So I totally agree that for me, every body part needs to be trained completely different style. Or mind have one style altogether. For me, one style just don't work. It's just my body just don't respond. I'm weird like that. So, but moving on from that, is there any specific nutritional approach that you prefer over the other? So, especially when you want to be a professional bodybuilder, you obviously need to get a size. You can't be small professional bodybuilder. It's just a waste of time.
I agree. And I'm going to say a couple of things that sound contradictory, but then I'm going to clear it up with what I really do for a living and I think is the correct answer. I am by education and by vocation a biologist. So I have some insights into biology and basically life sciences that maybe the average person doesn't take the time to consider. And fair play, why would they? Here's the thing about human beings. We are actually really shitty creatures. We're fairly small. We're fairly weak. We have light bones. We're not fast. I mean, any animal in the animal kingdom can run us down. We fucking, the family dog can outrun us. We're slow. We don't have sharp teeth. We don't have claws. We don't have fucking quills or scales. We are very delicate, ineffective creatures. As a rule, what we have that most animals don't have is the ability to eat almost anything and survive. We can live on all plants. We can live on all meat. We can live almost exclusively on fat. You can live on whale blubber if you need to. We have the ability to derive energy and nutrients from almost anything. People, think about this. Most animals live in a geographic area. All the giraffes are in Southern Africa. All the, fucking kangaroos are in Australia. They're not everywhere. Most animals, when they leave their native environment, they starve. They cannot deal with the food there. Humans can live on every single piece of real estate on this planet because we have the ability, keyword, not the necessity or not the optimization, but the ability to live on almost anything. So when people say, oh, I did keto or I did carnivore, I did that, yeah, obviously you can do that. That's our gift. You can live on anything. You live on fucking mushrooms if you want to. Doesn't mean it's optimum. Doesn't mean it's going to get you to your goals fastest. It means you won't die. And that's awesome. Not dying is a really good trait to have. It's how we make more people. So what I'm trying to say is this arrogance that this diet or that diet, quote, worked, it's not really arrogance. That's why we survived as a species. When we, walked from, the Nile Valley to fucking, Mongolia, the reason we managed to do it is because we could pick up whatever the fuck was on the way and eat it. Okay. So instead of talking about diets and fads and what have you, let's backward engineer it and say, what do big muscles require? Big muscles require a minimum amount of additional input of fat, about 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. You need enough nitrogen, protein. For the normal sedentary office worker, housewife, etc., about 1 gram per kilogram is sufficient. For bodybuilders, it's literally 2 to 3 times that. 2 to 3 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. Every day, no matter what. So once again, simple math equation. All additional energy should come from the most efficient energy source. That is carbohydrates. Okay. Yes, you can run your automobile on diesel fuel and kerosene and fucking alcohol and all these other, but everybody knows that gasoline engines run best on fucking gasoline. So instead of dicking around and trying to do all these clever things, feed it fucking gasoline, otherwise known as carbohydrates. Gasoline for humans is carbohydrates. Fucking eat them. They're delicious. Enjoy it. 1 gram per kilogram of fat, 2 grams per kilogram of protein. All the rest, keep eating carbohydrates until you get a little bit of body fat. Then stop, stay there, and then always test the waters and try and go forward. Done.
Would you change much? Like a lot of people love keto on comp prep phase. Is it really, is that it really changed their physique to an extent where they will lose to someone who is on high carbs?
Well, not being a fat fuck will change your physique. So that's kind of like asking me if dieting works. Like, yeah, we all know it kind of does. Here's the thing. If you think of that analogy that I just used as carbohydrates being gasoline, if you have an automobile, like a big truck, and you fill up the tank to the top, you have to drive a really long distance before you run out of gasoline and it stops. Failure. Okay. Failure is very far away because you have a very large reserve of fuel. If you put very little gas in the tank, the amount of distance you drive before failure occurs is sooner. So yes, restricting carbohydrates is going to get you to your goal. Does that mean jumping immediately ahead to no carbohydrates will speed your results? No, not really. It's more of the process. You're this fat, restrict, move less fat, restrict, less fat. Maybe you'll have to go all the way to keto because you started too fucking fat, maybe. Or maybe you'll actually get there well before that, no foul. So I see keto as, instead of a goal, more of a consequence. That makes any sense.
Right. Yeah. Would you think a training style would be a massive key, which style of nutritional approach you up? I think more of a, in a dieting phase, you can play around with high carbs, high fats, whereas in gaining phase, you wouldn't really go in keto, which in my eyes is just fucking moronic.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But I do think there needs to be some synergy between your overall dieting scheme and overall training scheme. But going back to the very beginning of this conversation, genetics plays a lot of role in that. There are people out there that train very low volume, high intensity, and still eat really, really high carbs because they must. And then the other side of the coin is there's really high volume, low intensity, super, hours and hours of training, and they seemingly don't eat that much carbs just because they have that kind of wacky metabolism. So it's not so much this diet's good and this diet's bad and this diet's this. It's a matter of the training and the diet all have to be on the same page doing the same thing. That's really the answer. And everybody's page looks a little different.
So I hear from that, get logbook out and write down what the hell works for you.
100%. Notes upon notes upon notes. If you're not keeping a journal, you are just masturbating. Most people can't remember what they fucking had for lunch yesterday, much less how their training was 5 years ago. Every single day that you have the ability to move your dumb little fingers, you should write something down about the way you ate, slept, trained, how much sex you had, how many milligrams you took, how much fucking chicken wings you ate every goddamn day.
Yeah, it reminds me that I got notes from 2003.
Absolutely.
Didn't make much sense. Then I just wrote down that my leg was 49 centimeters, something like that. Pathetic. My arms are bigger than that now. But it's fun to watch. Look back, how on earth did I look when my arms are bigger than my legs used to be? So yeah, so moving on from there. Yeah, something is. Moving on from there is the dark side, performance enhancing drugs. So what would you say? You'll go from yeah, I've known guys who've turned pro being natural, but you're not going to get very far. So there is a cutoff point where you start doubling into whatever is. So what would you say is the basics that people would have to really research before going into it, like jamming everything into them and hoping for the best?
Well, that's a really, really difficult question. It's really hard to tell people, this is how you break the law. This is how you cheat and those sorts of things. So I don't really think about it that way. The way I think about it is, again, go back to the beginning of this conversation. And I said, don't really worry about your genetics. Just lift the weights, decide if you enjoy this lifestyle, see if it clicks. The sport will sort you into it's like the Harry Potter hat. The hat will decide what group you go into. Bodybuilding will decide what group you're going into. If you just don't have what it takes to be a classic bodybuilder, bodybuilding will tell you. And vice versa. If you don't have what it takes to be, 300 pounds, bodybuilding will tell you. So I think you have to pass those early stages of, do I really want to do this? Is this really worth investing my life, investing my health, investing my, legal repercussions? And So as you progress through the sport, the sorting action of the sport itself will help you make the decision whether you look like you're on a path toward drug use or not. Then this bit up here starts to come into play. So if you are moving toward a direction where maybe your genetics aren't so great, or maybe you're really loving it, you want to do this, or maybe whatever, and you're moving toward more and more interest in the topic of drugs, then the brain needs to come on and those muscles need to engage. And you say, well, if I'm going to need drugs a year from now, I have a fucking year to figure out what this is all about. Then you have to buy books, good quality websites, coaches, and you need to start learning and absorbing enough information to at least not act the fool. You don't have to be a wizard. You don't need a degree in pharmacology, but you do need to not be a jackass. Just like the first time you walked in the gym, you needed to not put 200 kilos on a bar and just climb under it. You needed to not be a jackass. Same thing. Unlike when you and I were 15 years old, information's a little easier to find. Unfortunately, bad information's a little easier to find. But again, as you're progressing through the sport, you need to have your antennas up. You need to be thinking, who seems intelligent? Who's willing to talk about it? And start talking well in advance so that when you get there, you've already made the decision and you already have a vague idea of who the fuck to talk to. Everything else will work itself out fine.
So that brings me to next, blood work.
Okay.
What would you look into? Okay, you've decided, I want to become bodybuilder. I want to do professional level. Let's check your blood. Like how important it is to check your blood before you even do anything.
You know, it's funny you ask that. And I know you're just goading me because you and I know each other. And I know that you know my answer to this. But everybody listening to this probably owns an automobile or at least, is familiar with an automobile. I forget that maybe in Europe, not everybody owns an automobile like America, but you have some understanding, okay? There's that dipsticky thing. There's that, metal dip sticker thing that goes into the engine. Why does it go into the engine? Because you can't see inside the fucking engine. The only way to know what's going on in the engine is to use the dip sticker thing. If you have an engine, chances are you ought to do the dip sticker thing. My point is, everyone, if you have blood, you should check it once in a while, like maybe once a year. I don't care if you lift weights. I don't care if you nap all day long. I don't care what you do. If you have blood, you should probably check it once a year. If you're doing potentially negative shit to yourself, you should check it more often. So the concept of is blood work important? Unless you can see inside your body, you need to do the dip sticker thing. Okay? That's just the way that is. So blood work's super fucking important. As far as, a natural versus a drug enhanced bodybuilder, basically all we're talking about there is the frequency. If you're natural, you're probably not exposing yourself to a lot of dangerous behaviors. So yeah, once a year, probably enough. If you're going to use drugs, I would say, first of all, right out of the gate, once, hard stop before you ever touch drugs. Just not so much because you are worried about things, but because in the future, you're going to look at these numbers and go, are these numbers good or bad? The only way to know that is to know where they started. If your reading X was 11 and now it's 9,000, you know that it went up a lot. However, if you never checked it in the first place, maybe you're just the unlucky asshole that's at 9,000. So a pre-drug use benchmark is absolutely a must. As a matter of fact, people that don't have that, I won't deal with. Okay. From there, the amount of blood work and what you look at on the blood work is somewhat dependent on who you are and what you're doing to yourself.
Yeah, that's probably another 3 hours of talk. Just
Oh dear God, yeah.
so we not, but I think this covered it really pretty good because I've had clients and some of them take something, some of them don't, and then I tell them, "What's your blood work?" Like, well, I'm not taking anything. Why should I check it? I'm like, well, just to understand if you're healthy. It's kind of, but. For whatever reasons, the more people take stuff, the less likely they want to check what's happening underneath. And it's just crazy. I had just one guy last week sending me his blood work, and it was red inside out. And I'm like, you should back off a bit. Maybe even from gym as well for a month or two. But yeah, it's something that when I started training, our first powerlifting coach, he just sent us in before I even understood what's protein is, what creatine is, and I had not a clue why is he doing that. But now I understand. He just wanted to make sure that he knows how well we recover from what he puts us through.
Absolutely,
which was cool. So, what would you say is the biggest struggle in becoming a professional bodybuilder? And I mean anything, life, whatever. What comes into your mind when you think this might derail me from becoming a professional bodybuilder?
Well, I won't really use. I'm going to change the question a little bit, but I think I'll give you a good answer. But whenever people always do that. Well, what would you worry about? They're talking to me. I'm not a good person to talk about. I'm the person that literally was like, if I die, I die. This is what I'm doing. So I'm not the guy to ask that question. But what I'll answer is, being the coach that I am, I've seen a lot of people get through the early weeding process, get to the national and international level, and they're really good. But they're just not able to get that hump to the pro, which is the great. The worst pro in the world is great. Okay? People don't understand that. Like, he never won a show. Holy fuck. If you're a pro bodybuilder, there are 7 billion motherfuckers on this planet. There's 7,000 pros. If you're a pro, you are great. End of story. So that separation between good and great almost always comes down to chops. That word that I use over and over, it's too much. It's that extra thing that the other guy doesn't have. You're either that much smarter, or that much more gifted, or that much fucking meaner, or that much wealthier. You have some extra little herbs and spices on your chicken that other people don't have that makes your chicken just a little more delicious. That's the answer. It's just that extra thing, and that thing isn't the same for every person, but it's always extra. Do you know what I mean by that? I don't know if I'm explaining it quite right.
I would describe it as probably in one word, if someone asked me, resilience to whatever being thrown at you, you push through it regardless.
But the tools you use to push through that aren't always the same. It's not like just that tough guy, put your head down and, fuck, another day in the mine, get on the train, go in the hole. It's some people outsmart it. Some people outmean it. Some people pay for it. Everybody's got a different weapon, but you're right. It is that. It's that.
Yeah.
It's not going to stop me. I have to get around it. But it's a thing. It's just that extra little bam on your biscuit.
Yeah. How I see it, probably if I rephrase what I just said, is there will be one thing that stresses you the hell out, and being able to deal with that stress in a manner, just finding that way out, because that's probably that one thing. If you don't have money, if you don't have genetics or whatever, if you start getting stressed out, you're going to burn out and you just give in.
Yep.
So being able to deal with the stress pretty much in whatever shape, way or form it comes.
I agree. I would agree.
So it's quite cool. So we've covered quite a lot. One last thing, there is just one thing what I'm interested in. What the hell are the benefits of being professional bodybuilder? What does it give to anyone?
You know, that's a really funny fucking thing, because some of the most successful people to come out of bodybuilding really weren't very successful bodybuilders.
Mm.
You know, names that jump to mind. Tom Platz is one of the most successful humans to ever engage in the lifting of weights. He really, I don't know if he ever won a pro show. If he did, it was only one or two. He just wasn't super successful as a bodybuilder, but bodybuilding became a vehicle to much greater successes. And honestly, I think that is what bodybuilding really was supposed to be about. It wasn't supposed to be this, oh, if I could just win that trophy, I'll be a whole and decent person. I think it was always supposed to be this idea of, I'm doing this to be better in some way, whether that better is bigger or leaner or pose better or present myself better or make more money. It's about betterment. And I think if you approach it, and the few people that do approach it that way come out better. The people that go into it as, I just want to beat everyone else, they don't seem to go anywhere after they've beaten everyone else. They just stop being bodybuilders, and it seems almost pointless.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's like, I talk with, I think, more of an amateur level guys, and they're like, I do it for myself. I just want to prove myself this and that. And I thought like that very, very long time, until I realized just a couple of years ago that I was competing not for myself. I just loved seeing my dad happy. He was bloody so proud of me competing.
Yeah,
So I think it, from my perspective, benefit, it kind of grows you into, right, how can I rephrase it? It, for me, becoming a professional at anything is more about who you become throughout the process. I think that's the main benefit. If you are at elite level, you can kind of use that blueprint for everything else if you're smart enough.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you look at these post-competitive bodybuilders, Rich Gaspari, Dorian Yates. They went on to have business empires afterward, and they used the same strategy of, I've got strengths, I've got weaknesses, I'm going to exploit them, I'm going to hide them. You know, the same way that, you know, you learn how to train which body part, you train yourself to behave the same way in business. And, you know, I'll show the public this and I won't show them that, and I'll do this and I'll not do that. And I think it's the same general approach, just different tools. Instead of lifting weights, you're waving a pen around. But I think it's the same general approach to how you do it, how you excel at it.
And it's just cool to be bloody big and strong.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I enjoyed this. Really, thanks for your time. That's me covered. If you have anything to add to this topic about like becoming a pro and burning questions in my mind.
I mean, you know me, Eurus. One, I'm happy to come and talk to you anytime you want to talk. I'm right there. Two, as you know, I love to talk, and I love to talk about business, so not a problem. And then three, I'm usually not one for the commercial hard sell, but I do have a members website. I do cover all of this stuff ad fucking nauseum on the member site, and there's more than a little bit of information with the other smiling face on the screen, Mr. Eurus. So there's a lot of information out there, and I'm happy to come give you more anytime you want. So with all of that, we should be able to cover it.
Yeah. So what's the website? Where can people find you?
My everything is TeamEvilGSP, TEAM Evil GSP. The member site specifically is members.teamevilgsp.com. And Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all that stuff is TeamEvilGSP. So all of those places lead back to the same, which is the ultimate member site. $15 US a month, $150 a year. Hundreds, literally, no exaggeration, hundreds of hours of content by me, you, many others from the industry. So plenty of material out there.
Yeah. So, yeah, from my side, let's wrap it up. And like I said, I really enjoyed this. I might come up with something else and just, since UK is in lockdown now, abuse this time, just become a bit more productive and become more efficient in this. 100%. But yeah, thanks for your time. Really appreciate you coming on and just talking about. I think these are the things that people ask, and we're just interested for someone who has so much experience working with so many athletes at different levels, like yourself. Because what I've seen and what you've seen are completely different things, and I really enjoyed this. So thanks for that, and I'll speak to you soon.
Perfect. Thank you.